Hi guys, it's the next day and I've got the axle in the workshop ready to sort of do some work and strip it down and get the rust off and all that sort of stuff. I've already had a little play around with the needle scaler and a lot of that sort of delamination stuff just comes straight off with that, so that's fine. And then what you're left with is solid non-flaky metal that's good for rust encapsulator and Raptor paint, etc. I had several brackets break, bolts shear, usual rusty Toyota thing. When I needle scaled the backing plates, we poked holes through. I knew they were bad anyway, so get new ones of those. Luckily they're still available. Brake lines, again the brackets broke. I already had to cut it there because where this joins on was where I was going to separate it, but that pipe that runs up the car was knackered, so that needs replacing, so it was easy just to cut it. These back ones were replaced a little while back, but because trying to undo this, it twisted this and then bent that, so plus the other end of them, they were completely seized in to here. They would not come undone, so because I'm doing all the brakes anyway, I cut it and then allowed to get a 6-sided socket on there, which allowed me to undo that. The only thing that I'm not going to disassemble from this axle is the ABS sensors, because I know that they seize in there. I mean, even getting the bolt out is not a problem. You can drill the bolt out and things like that, re-tap it, but the sensor itself will be well and truly seized in there. I know that from experience. So they work, leave them alone. Just means I've got to unclip all these clip points and just sort of work around the cables. So the next step, or today's job, is I'm going to get the tyres off, get the brakes disassembled, and start cleaning up this axle. I want to try and get the backing plates off. These nuts I've cleaned all round them, cleaned all the threads, and they've been soaking overnight with WD-40, because I believe you've got to take everything off here to get these backing plates off. And I need to get these springs off because I need to try and source some new ones, because one of them broke on that side and I have a feeling that they're a bit crispy. I had a failure last year on the MOT. I think it was this side, the lever was seized on the handbrake, which again, we took the boot off, put some WD-40 in it, kept working it, and it freed up, but that's all going to come apart and be reserviced. So that's today's job. I also need to get the fuel tank off the car and the upper control arms. So I reckon that's enough work for today, so we'll crack on and see how much of that we get done, and I'll bring it back when I've got some progress. Well, they fought me a lot more than I expected. Finally just got the drums removed. It's been about 2 hours, 3 hours since I last updated you guys, and I've literally just been wrestling brake drums. You'd think it'd be easy with the axle off the car, but no. This truck is so neglected and crispy. Everything's a nightmare. There's a little slot here with a bung in, and you can see the ratchet for the handbrake adjustment. Obviously the handbrake's all completely disconnected and released, and you're meant to turn that to release the shoes, but you have to push a little spring. I'll just grab a screwdriver. This if I put my screwdriver in here, hang on, there we go, you can see that metal plate, and the idea is that you basically push that metal plate like so, which releases the teeth and allows you to turn that in the downward direction to release the shoes. trying to do it through that access hole is really tricky. You can't really feel if you're on that thing. And then when you're turning the other one with the screwdriver, I think the teeth on those ratchet probably aren't as teethy as they should be. So it was constantly slipping. And it just took forever to try and do that. We also tried, the drum has 2 threaded holes that you can run 2 M8 bolts in to sort of push against this face and draw it off, which is fine if the shoes aren't seized onto the drum, which they were. So we tried that. We've tried massive hammer, a combination of everything. Basically eventually got them off. But the reason I wanted to get them off is because I had them off in the past before and they didn't seem to fight me, but for some reason this time they wanted to fight me. And basically every shoe is fractured and cracked all over the place. There's plenty of meat on them, but they're all fractured and cracked. And I think it was probably caused by when the handbrake, this lever seized up and the handbrake was on. And because they're so, you know, they only do 25% of your rear brakes, you're driving around and you don't even know the handbrake's on because the car's so torquey. And I think that just caused a lot of heat build up in those shoes and they cracked. So, but we've got new drums, new shoes. I can't remember if I bought new wheel cylinders, but I'm going to take all this apart and see how these cylinders behave, and if they're any good then we'll keep them. If they're shot then we'll replace them because they're not expensive. And we'll replace all the handbrake adjusting mechanism and spring kit, etc., because it's also crispy. So next step is to take all of that apart and then we'll continue with more productive stuff like derusting and getting the fuel tank off and things like that. I'll update you soon. I thought you might appreciate my handbrake thing. This might explain why why there's problems with the handbrake. Let me just peel back the rubber boot. Hang on, I need a screwdriver. I don't think it's meant to have snow inside. God. That is something else. There is a pivot in there, and that's all meant to pivot and move. But yeah, sadly I don't think you can buy these new, so I've got to try and restore these. And yes, one of the bolts did shear. Right, I've just slackened off the oil axle fill plug and also the drain one, and it's going to drain the fluid out so that when I take the shafts out to get the backing plates off, we don't lose too much oil out and make a mess this end. We sort of catch most of it here. I'm still undecided whether I'm going to do the wheel bearings. I technically should while I'm there, but obviously it's more money, isn't it? Because you've got to buy the puller and you've got to buy the bearings and blah blah blah. So we'll see what they're like. We'll have a sort of an inspection once we get it all apart and see if there's any play in them. So let's set you guys up here, and you could admire probably how disgusting the oil is. It's not terrible, it's a bit cloudy. if we take that fill out, that'll drain a lot quicker. There might be a bit of water in there or something. It's definitely due a change. It's not nice and sort of translucent like it should be. It's very sort of cloudy. I've also got to try and get that breather out of there as well. Oop, steady. Right, I'll let that drain and I'll bring you back once we've got some more progress. Well, I think another hour or so has passed and I've got the shafts out, and I don't know if it's just because they're not under tension, but there is some play in those bearings. Like I say, that might just be because it's, you know, not all bolted up and under tension. But I have got a hydraulic press, albeit a very small one, which if I mount that on something other than that bench that allows me to bring this axle through from the bottom, sort of straight up, and I buy the special tool thing, I can pull off these things as per the instructions and press the bearings out, etc. So while it's all apart, we may as well put new bearings in. I also thought, while it's apart, why don't I attack the ABS sensors? I said I wasn't going to because I've never successfully got a Toyota ABS sensor out, but sure enough, they both came out. The bolts didn't snap off and they came out. Thankfully they're all plastic and they've just got an O-ring. So the ones that have a sort of a metal collar, they're terrible because they just completely seize on, just the two bits of metal fused together. I still had to, you know, grip the crap out of these with mole grips to try and wiggle them out, and then use pry bars and things to actually physically get them out. Yeah, we'll put new ones in. It just makes tidying up the axle a lot easier now, because obviously it's quite a heavy thing, and we've took those shafts out now. We've lost quite a lot of weight, the fluid's out, got all the ABS sensors out of the way, so there's no wires, no brake lines in the way, so I can block off the ends and then really go to town in getting all this crap off with the old needle scaling gun, and then we can protect it. So I don't know how much more we're going to do today. It's I mean, we are in the garage, but just about in the garage, but it's chucking it down now. The Hilux is up there, so you make do with the space you have. I might go and see if I can tackle taking off the upper link arms and the fuel tank, at least make a start on that, and we'll see how we go. I'll bring you back in a bit. I managed to get the fuel tank off, and I also took the handbrake cable completely off. Just going to get a new one of those, just because the fittings where it joins on the axle, they all snapped off the axle, so although the cable itself is good, I can't reattach it to the axle, so I'll get a new one of those. And the filler pipe, they do sell new ones of those, but they're very expensive, so the pipe is actually good up here but crap there, so I'm going to cut it there and then just extend it with rubber hose. I've got some proper filler hose and some normal diesel hose for the vent that I can use, so that's all good. I've got the rear, the upper link arms off as well. I'll show you those. I think these rubbers are past their best. So I'd say we've got new ones of those as well. And inside the workshop, there's the fuel tank, because we got that off, which is actually not too bad. The underside is a little bit scabby, but it's had several layers of paint on it over the years to sort of protect it, so it's not got any worse than it was, so that's all fine. And inside is nice and clean. I've had a look, and I'm currently working on descaling the rear axle. Now I've got the shafts out, so this is sort of what we're trying to get it down to from that. So I needle scale off all this delaminated metal and really go at it. Most of it just falls off anyway. And then I go over it with the angry part of that, and we get it to this, and then that's going to have a coat of, or several coats of rust encapsulator paint, which is a primer, and it basically converts the any rust into solid metal. So I find it's a really good base. I've used it on several under chassis projects before, and then on top, this and all of the chassis and underfloor of the truck is going to be done in 2K Raptor liner. The reason for that is 2K stuff is really durable, and also the Raptor liner's got a very textured finish, and obviously this is very pitted, so it'll just hide all of that and make it look nice and presentable and protect it. So I'm going to carry on working on this, needle scaling all of the crap off, and I'll bring you back when it's done.